Okay, sorry about that. That was a mistake. Okay, so you wake up tomorrow and someone you love is gone. Not missing, not unreachable, detained. ICE picked them up. They're sitting in an immigration detention center right now. No timeline, no answers, no idea when they're going to get out. And you ask yourself three painful questions. How did I get them out? Why are they being held? And is there anything I can do? Right? You're dealing with a detention. There's going to be paperwork. There's a system that's pretty cold. It's overwhelming. You're going to feel panic, guilt, fear. It feels unfair. Like no one should be locked up just because of immigration. I mean, I know everybody doesn't agree, but that's how I feel, and that's how you feel. And today I'm going to show you exactly how custody redetermination works and how bond hearings can make the difference between waiting in a basically a jail or waiting at home with your family. But here's what most people don't realize. Not everybody qualifies for a bond. And the reason might surprise you. I want you to stay with me because I'm going to tell you something super important at the end. I'm Ruben Restrepo. I'm an immigration and criminal defense attorney, and I've handled a bunch of immigration cases, especially trying to get people bonds. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to understand who qualifies for custody redetermination hearing, how immigration judges decide bonds, what evidence actually matters, and the biggest mistakes that cost families their freedom, right? And I want you to stay until the end because I'm going to explain one factor that makes or breaks bond decisions. Okay, before we continue, if you care about immigration updates, uh, criminal updates, things that are going to affect you, subscribe to the channel. I'm constantly making videos, lives, answering people's questions so that you don't have to, so you can ask somebody one on one. Now, what is a custody redetermination? When someone is detained by ICE, they are placed in what's called a removal proceeding. Some people are eligible for bonds, others are subject to mandatory detentions. Here's what most people they don't realize. A custody redetermination hearing or a bond hearing is not about whether you win an immigration case. It's about if you can fight the case that you got from outside the detention. That difference can change everything. Okay, now let me explain further. Immigration is handled by two departments: the United States Citizen and Immigration Services, known as USCIS, or Executive Office of Immigration Review, known as EOIR. USCIS handles visas, green cards. When someone's talking about status, that's where they go. EYR is the court system. A good analogy would be like your driver's license. Want to apply for a license or ID? Go to DMV or DPS. If you're in Texas, it's DPS. But if you want something else, like your license is suspended, you got to go to the court and you got to challenge it in court. Someone from DMV and DPS, they're going to be the ones trying to uphold the suspension. And so that's how it is with immigration. So when someone's being detained, DHS is the one that's trying to hold them in custody through ICE. That case is going to be open with a removal. And unlike a criminal case where a bond is mandatory, based on the circumstances, a person can be held indefinitely in ICE custody pending their case. I had a client, we'll call him Carlos. Carlos had lived here for like 12 years, US citizen children, no violent criminal history. ICE detained him after a minor traffic stop that triggered an old immigration issue. His wife gave me a call. She thought it's over. He's going to get deported, right? He didn't have to get deported, but we did have to act fast. Okay, so that begs the question, who qualifies for a bond? Now, before I give you the solution, you need to understand one thing. Not everybody qualifies for a bond. If someone has certain criminal convictions, especially aggravated felonies, they may fall under mandatory detention. That means the judge, they don't even got discretion. They can't do anything. Now, another thing people need to know is recently in the Fifth Circuit, DHS has been claiming that people who entered without inspection do not have due process rights for custody redetermination. Other jurisdictions believe that they do, but immigration court is different. And they will not let that pesky constitution get in the way. That means no decision from a judge is even allowed. But if they are eligible, the judge will look at two main factors. Are they a flight risk? Are they a danger to the community? That's it. Not emotions, not sympathy alone. They're going to need evidence. The next part, this is where people can get into trouble. Families show up and they have these letters and say, well, he's a good person. That's not enough. You got to prove stability. Okay, so what actually wins bond hearings? I want you to stay with me. This next step is one that saves families months of suffering. Okay? Immigration judges want to see proof of legal relief available, stable address, employment history, tax records, family ties, no serious criminal history, community support, proof the person will be able to appear in court. It's not just about who they are, it's about reducing risk in the judge's mind. Also, every detainee will need a sponsor. That sponsor needs to make money. No excuses about being poor are going to be accepted. That can make things tough for U.S. citizen housewives. Technically, they don't have the money to sponsor the detainee. So another person has to step up. And judges, what do they want to see? A letter of support, proof of identity or citizenship, proof of income, usually through tax returns, proof of residency like utility bills. Let me tell you about another case. A young woman detained at the border, transferred to a detention center. She had no criminal record, but ICE argued she was a flight risk. Why? Because there was no documented address. Right? But I was able to secure an affidavit from a relative that showed that where she was living. Now all of a sudden I had proof. Guess what? The judge granted the bond. Why? Because we told a story backed by evidence. It wasn't enough to just say it, we had to show it. Bond hearings are storytelling backed by documents. Most lawyers won't tell you this, but preparation often matters more than the hearing itself. The bond amount, okay, let's talk about that. Even if the bond is granted, the amount can range from as low as $1,500 to $20,000 or more. And here's the part that people don't expect. If you rush into a hearing unprepared and lose, you might have to wait before requesting another one. Unless circumstances change, that delay means months of detentions, right? Carlos, the client that I mentioned earlier, we prepared that thoroughly. We addressed all the concerns that I knew the judge was going to bring up and that the government was going to bring up. The judge set a reasonable bond. He walked out days later after they paid it. He's fighting his case from home. And that changed the emotional outcome for his entire family. Freedom during proceedings is not just physical, it's strategic. Okay, let's briefly talk about how people come into custody. Mainly, it's two ways. The first way is that ICE just detained a person. ICE is roaming around the streets looking for accents and listening for color, just as prescribed by Justice Kavanaugh. The other normal way is that there's an arrest. The person is in county custody, then there's a check, ICE hold. Once the person is out on bond or the case ends, they're transported over to ICE. This is important because there's a risk of staying in custody because they do not qualify for an immigration bond. ICE is holding people until the order is done. Now the bail is lost. They're not sent back until the removal case is over. If the person does not qualify, then a bond, if a person does qualify, then a bond may be granted. And it's always better to fight a case from outside than from detainment, or jail. Now, if you or someone you know is dealing with a, a custody case where they're in ICE custody or they have an immigration hold, I want you to reach out to me. Preparation matters, strategy matters. Don't wait until, don't hope that things are going to resolve just on their own. They won't. I want you to reach out. Look at the link in the chat. Look in the description. Look in my bio. Custody redetermination is about proving two things: that person is not a danger and they're not a flight risk. When you present evidence strategically, you can shift the outcome. Now, I want to hear from you. I want you to drop your questions in the chat. Tell me what situation you're facing. Some of the best insights come from your questions because real cases reveal real challenges. Let's talk about this, right? And I talk about everything, guys. I come on here at least 4 times a week. We're talking about gun cases, DWI cases, bond hearings. Obviously, we're talking about immigration custody hearings today. So, whatever you got going on, I'm here to help. And I want you to follow me for more.